In this video, we're going to be checking out Automobilista 2 with the Oculus Rift VR headset. We're going to see how well it runs, how well it looks, and of course, shout about how VR is the best way to play all driving simulators. Welcome back to the Gamer Muscle YouTube channel. Click that like button, and of course, subscribe if you like sim racing and VR content. Now, we've got everything set up here with launching into VR. Nicely, you can choose if you use a Oculus version of the game or a Steam VR version of the game, so all the VR headsets are basically covered there. Also, if you launch with the Oculus version, you can set your graphics settings for that, and it remembers it separate to the 2D version of the game. So if you're also playing in 2D, I don't know why you would, but if you're also playing in 2D, I do live streaming in 2D, it's nice because you can set your graphics settings slightly lower than what you'd use for your 2D settings and, you know, load whichever one you feel like doing and not have to keep adjusting settings. So that's awesome. Now, in order to test this, we are at the beautiful, nay, the perfect Brands Hatch race circuit, and we have, of course, gone for the P4, which is one of my favourite vehicles in the game. Let's get my racing gloves on here. We've got to do this seriously. I've set the AI to 100% difficulty, so this should provide a little bit of a challenge. I might need to up it even further. And we're going to be starting at the back of the grid, and it's just going to be a 7-lap race. So should be enough for us to go through the points with the VR and see how well everything's working out in its current beta form. There we go. Now let's center the VR headset there. Rev your engine. Off we go into the sunset. Whoa, maximum power. Now, you know, with Automobilista 2 being based on the Madness engine, it's the same graphics engine that Project Cars 2 uses. In terms of VR performance and fidelity and general quality, basically it's the same. It's essentially the same as Project Cars 2. So if your computer ran Project Cars 2 okay in VR, then you're pretty much good with Automobilista 2. Though it seems to me like I get slightly better frame rates with Automobilista 2, and I think that's mostly because the trees, as you'll notice over in the distance there, they don't use the same 3D trees that Project Cars 2 uses, but they instead use 2D billboard trees, which they look really nice, but as you drive underneath them, you do notice the trees bending a little bit. That's the only downside, but you get better, they look nicer, I think, than the 3D trees, and you get better VR performance. So I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. But guys, how good? Every time I play a driving simulator in VR, it's like, oh my god, it just makes sense. I mean, positioned right inside the cockpit here, and I've been driving this car in 2D a fair bit, and in 2D you get the impression that this car is actually a lot bigger than it is than when you play it in VR. VR gives you a much better sense of scale of objects, the actual size of stuff, and when you play this in VR, this car has much more of a size that makes it feel visually more like you're driving something like the Spec Racer Ford from iRacing. And I think this might actually be slightly narrower than a Radical SR3, which I think has a slightly wider bonnet on it. So it's just weird how much more noticeable the sense of scale is when you play in VR over 2D. But the actual details of the cockpit, Ryzen have done a fantastic job here. Everything's all like nicely there. You know, when you're in VR, you can look around the cockpit more, and you certainly notice all the little buttons and options and the speed gauges and everything going on in the cockpit. And you know, with Automobilista 2, fortunately, just like AC, rFactor 2 and the other top simulators, you know, it's got all those cockpit details there that you can really enjoy in VR and really adds to the immersion. It makes you just feel like you're sat inside the vehicle. Of course, you've also got the mirrors working like proper mirrors, so if you can't see someone quite on your side, you can move your head a little bit, and that allows you to actually tell that someone's making a dive bomb pass at the inside just naturally when you look at it to make sure it's clear. Oh, lighting looks absolutely phenomenal here, and the shadows, I'd say, you know, I don't know if this is just placebo, but I definitely feel with Automobilista 2 that they improved the shadows a bit, so there's a little bit less shimmer than what I was used to with Project Cars 2. I don't know if that's anti-aliasing or something else going on, but I think the image clarity is a touch better than Project Cars 2 in VR, but really, you know, the impression you get from this is basically the same visuals that you get in Project Cars 2, combined with, in my opinion, just way better handling vehicles in Automobilista 2 compared to Project Cars 2. Much more stable, much less snappy, far more progressive. The force feedback out of the box is a lot more dialed in. I mean, I'm using a really nice FANATEC Podium direct drive wheel. Like 20% force feedback. But, you know, you can really feel like a really nice load through the corners. Not so much front end feel for the how much grip you have on the tyres going into a corner, but that mid corner load and the back of the car and the suspension compression and the general track details, really nice, immersive, and for the most part really nice communicative force feedback that lets you just drive from feel. And what I find in VR, because like the car movements are just a lot more obvious in VR compared to 2D, like you really notice that twisting and rotation of the car in VR, whereas I think on a 2D screen it's a little bit tamer. So it's personally, I find it easier to accidentally overdrive when I'm playing in 2D, but when I play in VR it tends to make me drive smoother because, well, it gets a little bit uncomfortable if you're soaring away at the wheel and the car's rotating all over the place. It's just really, really noticeable. I tend to hit better lines and just be gentler with the vehicles when driving in VR. Oh man, look at the shape. Like, you can really appreciate the oh, just squeezed him off the track. Oh, I've got to give the plays back. Got a penalty there. There we go. You can really appreciate the shape and the three-dimensionality of the other vehicles in VR. Again, when you're in 2D, everything's just a bit... When you're on a monitor, everything's just a little bit flat. So, just VR absolutely transforms driving simulators. Look at the sky. I've got time acceleration on here, and we've got it so it's started early morning, going on later in the day. I mean, that is one of the really big benefits of the Madness engine. You've got all the weather, different times of day, and the sky looks absolutely gorgeous in Automobilista 2. I'd probably go so far as to say that the clouds and stuff are a little bit more subtle in Automobilista 2 and a little bit more natural looking, especially, again, more noticeable in VR. I think you've got more vertical field of view in VR than when you're playing on a monitor. You notice those sort of the ambience of the racetrack a bit more. Obviously, that's not the most important thing when it comes to racing, but it's just nice. I mean, look at the subtle distance fog as well. Super immersive. Oh, struggling for grip there. Whoa, bit of marble firing off the car in front. Oh, come on, let's get the plate, get past him here. Dingle Delic, couldn't quite get it in. Ooh, come on. So, I mean, this is one of the things with VR. Obviously, VR is really demanding. And as many will confirm, you can play Assetto Corsa Competition. You can play that in VR if you're really willing to turn the graphics down or really willing to use reprojection. But basically, if you really want the whole sort of day-night weather and everything, and you want to experience that in VR, Madness Engine with Project Cars 2 and Automobilista 2 are the only really real way of doing that, while still having it look really nice and also hit those frame rates. I mean, I would say actually Assetto Corsa with Soul and the shader patch, that allows you to have day night and stuff. I mean, the wet weather, you can have wet weather in AC, but it's a little bit funky. But yeah, day night and that looks great and runs well in AC as well, but that does require a little bit of modding. So out of the box, if you want something with pretty nice handling cars, good range of content and the features, and then you want it to look really nice and also run in VR, then Automobilista 2 is probably, I'd say it's up there in the top 3 of VR racing titles. So Automobilista 2, AC and iRacing are probably the top VR racing titles at this point in time. Whoa! Come on! AI is actually doing quite good at staying away from us, and they've been doing some moves. Reza have done a really good job polishing the AI. Final lap here. Oh, give him a punt! Look at them battling in front. Whoa, God! Force feedback bailing me out there as we loaded up the car and then went wonky donk. So that's another thing with Automobilista 2. It actually, if you want to race in single player, if you're an alien, you'll probably find it boring. But even if you're like moderately good, you can have a nice little bit of challenge with the AI. And there's so many tracks in this game and so many different cars. You've got a lot to learn and try out there. They haven't done like a full single player in terms of a structured thing yet, but I think that's something they're working on. Personally, I just like to, if I'm racing AI, I like to just set them on a certain difficulty and then a certain number of laps, start at the back and see if I can beat them. That's my usual challenge. It's basically the same as what would happen in a single player, only you just don't get there's no real story or anything. Come on, we're going to get some more play. I'm going to push him off. I'm going to get panned. I need to turn the penalty system off. There we go. Oh, jeez. Right. I want to destroy him. Look at this. We've got dirt all over the cockpit here. Probably from my punting. I have to say as well, actually, the comfort of in terms of VR, the actual comfort of the car, visual comfort from the car movements is really quite good. So the sort of lock to horizon amount or how much I'm locked to the vehicle, I feel like I'm attached to the vehicle, but I also feel like I'm not totally locked to it so that I'm getting motion sick from it. So from a comfort perspective, this is actually really nicely done as well. I'm not completely sure what I've got my lock to horizon settings on. I'll probably, when there's 1.0, we'll probably go over the VR settings and different options and what's optimal. Look at those guys parked there on the hillside watching. Reza done a really good job of just fleshing out the environments and making them feel like you're at a race event. It's not a completely empty track when you start a race. Look at all those, look at the dials and the RPM gauge. Spot on. If you like VR and racing, as I say, race is finished, mate. Dead. Automobilista 2 is definitely a title to pick up for VR racing. I'm just nice little picket fence there. We're just going to cruise to the pit lane to finish the race. Now, it'd definitely be interesting to compare this with the Rift S and the Valve Index. I might have to do that. See which headset knocks it out the best. I often find for driving simulators, I quite like the way the Rift S uses the inside-out tracking cameras, so you don't need to bother with anything else. And also, the Rift S is very light, and the Oculus drivers tend to play a little bit better with driving simulators. Oh, look at the animated pit crew as well. That's cool. Look at that. Got all the details up here. What? Oh, pit box occupied. Sorry, got to just do a drive-through there. Well, that worked well. But yeah, the Rift S is a good. I think it's a good headset for VR driving simulators. The only issue with the Rift S is if you are outside of its IPD. With the Rift S, you have to make sure that you fit within the IPD because you can't move the lenses at all. But yeah, I have to say, really good job by Ryzen in terms of the VR support, all the UI working, separate launch and everything. What you expect from the Madness engine. Awesome job. So let me know, guys, if there's anything else you would like to see in VR in terms of driving simulators. I think we might go try and do some more Assetto Corsa in VR. Now we've got this all set up in a way that allows me to make videos with it nice and easy. And yeah, give us a shout in the comments section. But until the next one, guys, thanks for watching us. Click that like button, subscribe, and happy tea drinking. Worst ending ever. Happy tea drinking. And goodbye, everyone.